The family of a 17-year-old girl who was kidnapped in Mahikeng in the northwest say the kidnappers are threatening her, saying they know where she lives. The latest crime stats show that there were over 3,300 kidnappings reported in South Africa between the months of January and March this year. That's an increase of 1,580 cases compared to the same period last year. Now let's discuss this and other issues. We are now joined via Zoom by Christine Muhigana, the UNICEF South Africa Representative. Christine, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Of course, we are meeting at unfortunate circumstances, especially when you hear of a 17-year-old child who managed on her own, without the help of authorities, to escape kidnappers in South Africa, in this country. How bad is the situation?
The figures you just pointed out, just confirm how important, how serious the situation is. We work with the Department of Social Development to have a better sense of the issues and, more importantly, what it is that we can do, whether in South Africa or with other countries in the surrounding countries, to make sure that we prevent and when cases of kidnapping, trafficking of children occur, we are equipped with the necessary resources to address the situation. This could be cross-border activities, cross-border interventions, but in the cases such as the one that we have at hand now that you just described, make sure that the support is provided to the family, to find any child that's been kidnapped or missing, and when the child is back with his or her family, provide the necessary psychological support, because this is obviously a traumatic situation for any child to be going through.
One always thinks about human trafficking, as you say, being mostly cross-border. But often in South Africa, we hear of it being from province to province, or even in the same province where kids are trafficked from town to town. What are you, as UNICEF, seeing in terms of those statistics? What is actually motivating kidnappings in South Africa, particularly when we start to talk about children?
The motivations are not always clear. We are more aware of motivations when it has to do with cross-border activities where children are trafficked to become domestic workers, to get into sexual exploitation. Inside South Africa, I have to confess the information that we have is scarce, anecdotal, but obviously similar instances would be cases that we see where a child gets into domestic work, forced domestic work, child labor, or trafficked into sexual exploitation.
As UNICEF, you are warning parents, of course, to be vigilant and take precaution around their children, particularly because kidnappings are in the rise in the country. But then you hear of tragic stories like the Eastern Cape story, where children as young as 13 were found, dead in a tavern just recently, and under mysterious circumstances. We're still not clear what happened in that tavern, as we starting to hear police saying that they've wrapped up their investigations. But what responsibility then should parents take in situations like this, and even communities at large?
Yeah, it's a whole society responsibility. It's tragic, shocking what happened in Eastern Cape, and we want to reiterate our condolences to the families that lost their children in such an untimely and tragic matter. It's a whole society effort, as I said. The families, the communities need to be part of protecting their children. where there is distress or stress, be it from poverty or otherwise. We need to be there to support the parents with parenting programs, with interventions that strengthen families, communities to be protective for their children, but also making sure that the public entities, public services are there with supportive conditions, enabling environments, offering after-school programs, offering spaces where young people can also provide each other peer support, so that they engage in positive, productive activities outside of school, or as opposed to being in situations or spaces where the entertainment or the recreational activities is actually harmful and dangerous for them.
In as far as human trafficking is concerned and kidnappings, of course, as UNICEF, do you work closely with the SAPS? I mean, in other countries, you hear of anti-hijacking, anti-human trafficking units, that are formed to specifically deal with such crimes. What are you finding in South Africa in as far as law enforcement is concerned?
So what's good in South Africa is that legislations and policies are in place. What needs to be done, and we work closely with the Department of Social Development mainly to ensure that those legislation, those policies, those mechanisms are in place to protect children from kidnapping, trafficking, or to support the victims or survivors of such activities to be to recover from the trauma that such situations entail. We do not directly work with the South African police in South Africa, but as I said, through the Department of Social Development, we make sure that the appropriate environment, the appropriate mechanisms are in place and implemented so that children are protected.
Ms. Christine Muhigana is the South African representative of UNICEF. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon.